This is episode 85,
and it's deck safety.
Welcome to the Ultimate
Month.
Deck Podcast. Ultimate Deck Podcast. Helping you keep your finger firmly pressed on the decking industry, the people in it, and the information you need to master the backyard. And now, host of the Ultimate Deck Podcast, Shane Chapman.
There he is. He's back on the microphone, live today in Regina, here with Wade and Bryce.
Yep.
It's the Ultimate Deck Podcast,
Episode 85.
episode 85.
It's a sick intro.
Right?
Yep. It's probably going to catch on. Likely people will just introduce shows randomly now.
Like that. Like
like
no
that.
coordination, just both of you shouting in the mic. And,
No,
like, you
no,
didn't- I thought you were going to step in at the start, too. I thought you weren't just waiting to say the number.
No, I was just waiting for the number. Because
Yeah,
you
that's
said,
how that
like,
went.
let's make it messy, and then I did.
Yeah,
It wasn't even part of the start of it. I joined halfway through. Is it? Totally.
Okay, well,
And then
we're...
you kept going right through
Crap
the
shoot.
intro music.
Yeah, you followed it through. Then you added more at the end.
That's like, yeah, that's me. I don't make it on time, and then I stay late.
Late start, unfinished. Yeah, that's kind of how we go here. We're live on the Instagram again, recording this thing as it happens so that you, the people can interact and communicate and say what you want to say during the podcast. So watch. Now, Bryce, do you know offhand what the process is for like turning on notifications for when somebody goes live? There's a thing you can do. Because somebody asked me one day, they're like, I don't ever know when you're going to do it. And I was like, I don't
Simcoe.
ever know when I'm going to do it either.
I thought it just happened.
Nope.
I
Well,
thought
it does.
just notified everybody that's currently on.
Yeah, but it doesn't notify everybody, right? Like we've
I'm gonna
got
do this right
15,000 followers. I can't let them all know.
Humble brag.
But there's like a thing you can do. You can go into a setting somewhere, notifications, and then notification settings, and you can set what things you want to notify you about. Whether somebody goes live or posts a story or posts just a regular post. What's that called?
Who even
So-
uses those?
So if you go to the main Ultimate Deck Shop Instagram page
Okay.
and you click on where it says following,
Yeah.
there's a little thing for notifications.
Yes.
And then you can turn on notifications for posts,
Uh-huh.
stories, IGTV,
There it is.
and live videos.
There it is.
Most of the time it says some.
That's the one.
Get,
That's the setting right there.
get all notifications.
Yes. So if people want to know when we're going to record this thing live so that they can get in here and interact, they should just do what Bryce said. Go to the thing that he said and then click on the thing that he said after that and then go down
You know
to the
the-
thing and then
I'd have to
scroll
do
down
a
to the other thing that says
Tutorial
live.
video
You
for
know
this.
the voice that you were using when you were like, yes, yes. Have you seen the video?
I'm glad you did not say that a third time. That was getting super
Have you
erotic.
seen the video of the guy that dubs over the voice of his dog and tells his dog that he's getting him a kitty? Have you seen this
I don't know that I have, but
So
it
it's
sounds fantastic.
video on the internet? And this guy's like, okay, I went to the pet store, and the dog's like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That
And
is
then
I
I
actually have.
That's
and then I
Robin
saw a
Penny.
lizard. Oh, right.
It's who?
Robin Penny off TikTok.
Oh my, it is hilarious. And it's like, and then I was going to get a kitty. Oh yeah. But then I saw a snake. Oh no.
No, I don't want no snakes. No snakes.
Anyways, that voice that you were using was like, yes, that was it.
That was the
reminded me-
dog right
That
there.
reminded me of the dog.
I've got a second career voiceovering dogs.
Yeah, on YouTube.
Okay, good. Well, before we get started, Wade, I think that we should take a look at the worldly news.
Worldly news.
Okay, and we're throwing a kink in things. Bryce is going to give us the worldly news today.
Whoa,
He's been
you guys
practicing
better be
all week.
Ready.
Oh, he's got some good ones. I'm excited.
Okay. So the first one.
Cascade Deck and Fence and Deck just joined as well. What's up, boys? Don't worry, you go ahead. I'm
Okay.
I'm
Oh, you're
filling
just-
air.
you're just
I'm just like
You just never stop.
I
is the
just don't
problem.
stop. Right,
It makes
you
it
just gotta,
really hard.
You got to speak
edit.
louder. What we should actually do is just mute my microphone out, and so I can't even.
Oh, that's better.
Yeah, that's
Wait.
a relief gasp.
Yeah,
Is that what that
right.
was?
It's
Okay.
been 5 years and Wade hasn't heard you stop talking.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so do you guys like breakfast cereal?
No, I like
At
supper
all.
cereal.
Oh
Like
yeah, I
supper.
do.
You might like this then.
Come
I
on.
like supper cereal.
What is supper cereal?
Yeah, what
You
is
don't
supper
even use the
cereal?
word
When you eat cereal, it's supper
dinner
time.
cereal. You mean?
No, it's supper because it wasn't planned. Supper cereal.
Last minute cereal.
It was last minute. It wasn't planned, so it wasn't dinner.
Okay.
And I didn't have wine with it because wine and milk do not go together.
No, they don't.
Right? See?
So Kellogg's launches onion-flavored breakfast cereal
Get out of here.
in Korea.
Why would you do that?
Because onions are delicious.
Not on your cereal, though.
They for sure didn't talk to JJ about this.
I agree that onions are good. I enjoy onions on my Subway sandwiches and my hamburgers, not on my shreddies. Hear that ding in the background? That means that this podcast is doing some
It's
damage
over
right
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
But-
So anybody on the podcast want to buy a few $1,000s worth of stuff? Because that's probably what's going on downstairs.
So onion flavored cereal. What is it like? Is it a type of cereal that exists that they've just changed the flavoring to onion, or is it like little baby onions now? That
No, it's called a box of Chaka flakes. So
What does that mean?
Here's the interesting thing. So it's from Korea. Now
that is interesting.
This cereal, it was launched this year,
Okay.
but it won a poll to be the next cereal flavor 16 years ago. And Kellogg's is just putting it out now.
Oh, yeah. They're like,
That would have taken a few meetings to be like, are we actually going to do it? I know the poll won. I get that the poll won, but are we actually going to do this? I feel like we're being pranked right now.
I took a CEO that was like, I'm tired of this shit.
What
We're
I want-
releasing the onion cereal.
Yeah. It's like COVID year. What do we got? What do we got that we haven't done that didn't make any sense? Well,
Yeah.
so you said that, and I was like, they did a poll, and I was like, right away, I was like, this is a problem with running polls in today's world because you just get people that like mob mentality a poll, and they mess the poll up. But then you said that was 16 years ago, and there wasn't like a social media.
There was no internet.
Thing
The birth
to
of
do
the
that,
internet.
Yeah.
right? Well, yeah, I mean, you certainly weren't seeing people like come together for stupid means like you are today to make that happen. So that's weird. Now, are Koreans generally known for oniony things?
No.
Okay.
I think they were just screwing with everybody.
Okay. So Kellogg's. So just in Korea though.
Just in Korea. Although I think we should get some.
Well,
from
we gotta-
Wade
we
for
gotta
s-
get a
for-
box.
for supper cereal.
Supper cereal.
With supper cereal. We got to get a box of these things. Why are they called so the chocolate and onion, or why are they called whatever you called it?
Chaka flakes.
Choco flakes.
Maybe it's a
It's
type
Korean, probably.
it's a type of onion.
Maybe. I don't know.
Just selling it. Just have some
If
confidence.
we can get some of that.
Okay.
We'll
Okay.
eat some of that.
Headline number 2.
Here we go.
Ready? Man falls through floor of home and plunges down a 30-foot well.
What? Like he didn't.
Firefighters
There
in
just
Connecticut,
happened to be a well where he
Yeah.
fell through.
Yeah, firefighters in Connecticut said a man survived with only minor injuries when he fell through the floor of his friend's home and plunged nearly 30 feet down a well under the house.
Gotcha, bitch. The friend was like, "It worked.
That's
I
like
can't believe it worked."
that's cartoon stuff, right? It's like
yeah.
trapdoor cartoon
Yeah,
stuff.
it's like the floor broke and he ran in space in time and then fell like the coyote.
Yep.
So I guess if you think about this, like maybe the well was putting off some humidity and rotted out the floor right above it. Like, is that how we explain this? But why is there a well below the floor? Why is there an open well
Back in
underneath
the-
the floor?
So
That's where the water used to come from.
yeah, so it said that the well was likely outside the house in 1843, and then the hole was probably covered with some simple wood flooring, and the property was
simple.
renovated in 81.
Oh yeah, built over it. Didn't know.
Yeah, not upgraded to current code.
Didn't get a plan. No
Probably
permit.
wasn't in the code book. Don't build over the well. Section A4.
Or it was, and the
92.
inspector just rolled up, looked at the house, and was like, "Oh yeah, from here looks good. See you later."
What happened to that well that was here? It's not here anymore. All righty then. Sounds good. Have a great day.
Good job.
What else do I got here?
It's pretty dangerous. Somebody could fall through the floor and die.
Yeah. Can you imagine that trip though? Like the floor creaks and then it breaks and you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna fall a little bit here. And then you fall for a while.
I'm
It's like,
terrified of heights. Just
then you
generally,
have
I
thoughts
hate,
on the way down.
Do you
Yeah.
do you think that your friend then is
Your
potentially a
friend?
serial killer?
Yes.
That's what I mean. When I shouted "Gotcha, bitch," I was like, that was planned. That was not an oops.
Mm-hmm.
Convenient that the floor let go right over that well there.
Right?
Yeah.
Just go dance over there.
Yeah. Who else did he join down there? Splashes down there and
What?
finds Tupac. What are you doing down here?
Okay, weird news number 3. Louisiana man faces charges for swimming in a sporting goods store fishing tank.
Oh yeah, Bass Pro Shops probably, right?
Yep.
Yeah. As if you haven't thought about doing that here.
Yeah, I'm not judging him.
That shit happens.
Next.
Oh yeah, that was. Thought it was interesting.
It is interesting, but everybody's thought about doing it.
it would take some courage to get in there, but yeah.
So I got one, or I got a few more, but I got one that I wanted to wait for until we had like a better setup so we could show everybody. But,
Okay. We could always come back to it.
Okay.
There
Doesn't
are
matter.
6 people in here, so.
Don't worry about it then. Man's bladder explodes after holding
Oh yeah.
his pee in for 18 hours after a beer binge.
Oh yeah.
would
That's all
you-
it takes is 18 hours?
Why would you do that?
Well, you know.
A 40-year-old man reportedly fell asleep after downing 10 bottles of beer during a heavy drinking session.
Okay.
There's a bunch of shit
So-
wrong with this. 10 bottles of beer is not a heavy drinking session. That's a Tuesday.
Oh. Okay.
He was Chinese.
How big were the bottles? That's the thing.
And how big is the man?
Yeah. If he's 3'4" and he's drinking 4-liter jugs of beer, fine.
Yeah.
Then now the math works.
But I've had to go pee pretty bad sometimes and been holding it for usually your trap. Like, I don't know what the reasons are. Sometimes I just like to hold my pee, but I've never felt.
Not me.
He likes to challenge himself.
Yeah. I heard
like to
this
see if
guy
I
like
can do
had
it.
this
It makes
one
me
guy,
feel in control of my life again.
his bladder burst. I'm going to try and hold it till just before my bladder burst.
I don't know why I do it, but it just started when I had kids. I started holding my pee more. I just like because I wanted to feel it in control.
Shane needs therapy.
No, but
Yeah.
but like I didn't realize that I was in ever in any sort of danger of blowing your bladder out the side of you. So then what? Do you die?
Generally, yes. They
Did
saved
he?
this guy. No,
How?
they caught him in time. Like apparently.
But
he
then
was
what do
like,
you do?
Oh, my side hurts.
You put in a bladder implant,
Yeah,
bladder
stitch it together.
replacement.
bladder replacement surgery.
If
Well, if I know
they
that's
can
an
replace
option.
your heart with a pig's heart, I'm pretty sure they can
No
replace
big
your
deal.
bladder.
Yeah. They should have put a pig spleen in him. Then he could have told the weather.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Speaking of pigs,
Oh yes, here we go.
escaped pigs caused traffic chaos on a Virginia highway.
Is this another cop story?
No.
Oh,
Authorities in Virginia
Smokes.
said a group of large pigs.
well, it was in the States and it was pigs
Yeah,
and it was.
exactly.
It just seemed like it. Anyway,
They just went there. Some pigs got out of a truck. 95 pigs.
so
Yeah.
I saw.
I don't think they got out of the truck. That likely what happened was the truck rolled over.
Right. So I saw a video of that one time where a truck rolled over with pigs in it. And there was pigs everywhere, and like some of them were a little bit banged up, but others weren't. And they just like
Like flat.
they just scattered.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
it was just
Okay.
And you have feral hogs,
Okay.
and then you have hunting season.
That's
How that goes.
it.
and that wraps up the double long episode of the Worldly News. Okay, so that was a bunch of disasters right there, I would say, which leads into this good segue into our topic today because this is
Here's a freaking
Deck
disaster.
Safety Month. When is this posting? May? May or June?
Next year.
July. This is July what? 3rd. Right. Okay, so
Third.
we're a little bit behind.
Oh, damn.
We're a hair
Showed up late. Just talk longer.
late. When we started the episode, it was May. When he was done the Worldly News, it was July 3rd. So this is not. Anyway, so what we're talking about here is
Little
deck
Timmy
safety.
was in a well, and we got him out of there.
Well, we don't know that. Did they get him out of there?
Yes.
I'm not giving
Okay,
this
good.
up. We got one more minute.
So
to
this
talk
would
about
make more
nothing.
sense if it was the same guy who blew out his bladder. Like he's down in the well and he's like, I don't
Fine.
want to pollute this man's drinking water. I'm gonna hold this.
Poor guy.
Blow up your bladder while you're down there. Then there's double problems to the homeowner. Who's paying that insurance bill? We're talking about common deck failures, common
Sun
things
Life.
that lead to deck failures.
Yep.
What did you want to say?
I said Sun Life is that's who we signed with.
Catch it,
Sun Life.
yeah.
It's so good.
I guess it'll be them that's covering
Yeah.
it.
Because that's how you do things on Instagram. You just plug who you work with. Don't actually have valuable opinions. Just plug who you work with.
Right. Yeah.
We work with Sun Life Insurance. They're fantastic.
Sure. Yeah.
Except we pay them.
Yeah, I don't like how that relationship works, really. Not until I need the insurance will I appreciate that relationship. Common deck failures. So the reason we didn't do this episode back in May, and maybe we should have, because that was NADRA's deck safety month.
It was still winter here.
But yeah, there was a pandemic happening and nobody was building decks here yet. That's not true. May was actually a pretty busy month. But regardless, we didn't get to this topic then. The reason we're getting to it now is that there's one that hit home pretty close to us recently. A deck fell off a house, of a second story deck off a house.
Yeah, it was 9 feet in the air,
Crashed
approximately.
down. And so you always see these stories from time to time, like semi-frequently you see the stories hit the news and then the deck building community shares it and be like, there's another one, but it's always somewhere else. It's never, I mean, we've seen some deck failures here, but they haven't made the news. This one all of a sudden was like, here you go. Here's one that fell 9 feet off this house, or 10 or 11 feet, whatever it was, second story, crashed down, disconnected from the house, smashed on the ground. Yep. I don't know if anybody was hurt, but in that photo, there was a paramedic in the photo.
Yeah, because they
probably wasn't there to inspect the fasteners.
They were on the deck. It was a husband and wife.
Were they on it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and she was a little bit banged up. From what I understand, she's fine, but like sore and scared.
I guess so. You're not bracing yourself to be falling to the ground from your deck when you're having a coffee and reading the news in the morning.
True.
So anyways, it falls off the house same weekend or same rough time frame. There was another one that almost identical in Calgary. Fell off the house, same way. Up in the air, second story, boom, down it goes. Don't know if anybody was on there.
Same builder?
I don't know that either. Maybe. I don't know. I've only heard who the builder might be in Regina, and I don't believe that they build in Calgary, so I'm guessing different builder, but I have not had that formally confirmed to me by anybody, so I've not been sharing that information. But anyways, so that's why it's a little bit more relevant today for us than others. And we haven't talked about this topic for a while, and we kind of, like I said, glazed over May a little bit with this, and so it's probably time.
The reason we probably don't talk so much about this stuff is the people that listen to our podcast likely know all this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the home builders likely know this stuff too.
Yeah, but they're not doing it. But you know what I mean? Like the guys that are listening, the guys that are in here, or the girls that are in here, take this stuff seriously already. And so they're already probably using some of these techniques.
Possibly, yeah.
So we'll talk about it because it's important. And then Bryce can cut it all together and put it on YouTube, because that's maybe where it's more valuable.
That could be the case. Yeah, we do have some people that listen to this podcast that are just homeowners and may not be super experienced, and this may be new information to them. We've also got a lot of deck builders and industry people that are going to listen to this list and go, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But it's good to just go over it anyway, because you've also got some deck builders that are brand new to the gig. They were working for somebody else before, or they were working in construction, but a different line of work. And now they've started a deck building business within the last year, and maybe they haven't experienced these things yet.
Yeah.
Right. They probably know some of them, but maybe there's some that we're going to talk about that they don't. Okay. So this is not I'm not claiming that this is
like that.
Yeah. Like that. I'm not claiming that this is a comprehensive list. There are other things that can go wrong in them, but we've compiled a list of, I don't know, a dozen items here of common ones that you'll see.
Your family's busy.
Just going off on me right now. So we didn't number them. We're just going to go through them because they're each as important as the next. I don't want to imply that any one is more important than the next.
That's not true. Some of them are more important.
Fine. You pick the order. Let's go.
No, just start at the top.
Okay.
I'll let you know as we go which ones I think are not that important.
Okay. So not the first one. No, I wasn't going to number these.
Yeah.
Anyway.
On the list
at the top of this list that I've written down here is improper ledger flashing.
Oh, flashing.
Flashing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about this. Do you think we should carry some flashing here?
Yes. I've been saying it for a while.
We could get some like just pre-made 10-foot chunks.
Yes, we should.
And then the guys could drive over it with forklifts, and then we could like write it off. It'd be handy.
Discount at 5%.
Yeah.
All smashed up. No, but so the reason we don't get asked for it a whole bunch because a lot of new builds, like the builders are pretty good for flashing things. They're pretty good for flashing the ledger. That's usually already done. And then in other cases, you're retrofitting something that was already flashed before or wasn't flashed or whatever. Like people they're not buying as much, but we should lead that charge, and we should carry this.
One of the reasons I haven't pushed super hard to have flashing is if the house is if it's already stuccoed and then you're putting a ledger on there, I actually don't believe in cutting into the stucco.
Yeah.
I'd rather do like a deck to wall spacer or some sort of spacer of some kind, and then get away from the idea of trying to create a flashing.
Yeah.
So
I don't disagree with you. I think in this market, first of all, we're really dry here. Let's always preface this kind of conversation with the fact that we get like 12 days of rain.
like
here.
your humor or the actual humidity.
I like both, I suppose.
But
Where's the rim shot?
we don't have one. We only have a wah wah. Oh, we do have a rim shot. There it is.
Anything else you want to lie about today?
Is it called a rim shot?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Next.
Hasn't been my experience.
So if you're going to flash the ledger, then it should be done properly.
Here it
The
goes.
proper way is
This
to
is
get
the
some Z
downward
flashing.
spiral for the rest
Yeah.
of the show.
I feel
Good
like
luck.
I felt like I should step in and
Yeah.
save this one
If
real,
you're gonna
real quick.
flash
for a minute.
something after a rim shot,
There's a comment in here in the Instagram from Happy Chappy before we get on. It says, past experience, flashing usually comes in all bent up. Paperwork city with claims.
yeah.
Um,
So Daryl's not on board with us carrying flashing.
Yeah, sounds like not. But anyways, what this is talking about is like you got to make sure that the water has a safe path of travel over the ledger board so it doesn't get in behind, so it doesn't rot out the ledger board or worse, the floor system of the house.
Yep.
The rim board of the house. That's the problem. Because if that happens, if the integrity of the wood that you fasten things to is compromised, then the fastener's not going to hold in it. And that may be the least of your concerns. You may like,
Yep.
So that's the idea behind the ledger flashing. If you're going to flash it, and if you're not going to flash it, there better be a reason why you're not. Like it's got to be that water's not going to cause that problem somehow because you've addressed it in some other manner. But on new builds, the proper way to do that is to install your ledger and your Z flashing over top and your paper in front, like over top of the flashing and behind the ledger board. And some guys are using flexible flashing like a G-tape or Vicor or Blue Skin or something behind over whatever. Like creating some sort of envelope around the ledger board that the water's not going to get behind it. That's the point of it.
Correct.
To make sure that it doesn't compromise the integrity of the structure you're tying into. There's just who was it? I think it was we give Premier Sean a lot of shout outs in this thing and he doesn't even tune in. Like to hell with that guy. Right? Does he ever listen to this thing?
I don't know.
Why does he think he's above this?
He probably doesn't listen because he's busy doing his own thing.
Oh, maybe. Anyway, but I'll reference him again.
He's got
He's
a
doing
lot
a
of
job right now where it's classic case. I think he pulled off an old ledger, I assume, and it wasn't flashed properly. And he's kind of pulled the paper back now, the Tyvek back. And sure enough, underneath the OSB sheathing and the rim board of the house, all dust. Like it's all black and molded and like rotting and falling apart.
We actually don't have to go that far away. I delivered a deck package yesterday to Mike because we were short-staffed in the yard. So Mike from Decked Out, and we went out and they ripped the ledger off and same thing, like underneath
Same
the door.
story. Yeah.
It was all rotted. So he smashed all that plywood out and ripped it back to the floor joist and then got some new plywood, put the new plywood in and house wrapped it up.
And that's, again, in a market that doesn't have a lot of rain.
Correct.
Only 11 days a year. I'm just going to keep decreasing it by 1 until the end of the show and see if anybody notices. Like 12, 11 days, 10 days, 4 days. Anyway, what?
The number's 5. And then and then later in the show, I'm going to ask if anybody knows what the number is. It's like, you should have just done it. You should have just
But if you're in a market like Washington, on the West Coast, Washington
Speaking
State,
of Washington,
or British Columbia, Lower Mainland.
I watched the Jeffrey Epstein show the other day.
Holy smokes. Okay, here we go.
That dude was a sick puppy.
Yeah. Speaking of deck failures.
Go ahead. You just said Washington, made me think of the Clintons, and Epstein didn't kill himself.
I
So
was like, what is this? 6 degrees of decking Epstein?
yeah.
So, on the West Coast, if you're getting literally 220 days of rain, you should be paying a little bit more attention to this.
Yeah.
So, and our audience is from all over, not just here. So ensure that you're doing the proper practices for your area as far as flashing comes to on your ledger board.
Yep.
In our area, you mentioned sometimes we don't like to cut away the stucco. I'm also not a huge fan of doing that because I feel like you're just inviting problems more than like you're trying to do something that's going to be preventative. But in many cases, you're just inviting opportunity for problems. And
Yeah,
we've
'cause
always
it's
kind of
already
said
sealed.
if it's an old acrylic stucco or whatever that doesn't, like obviously you can't have any foam, rigid foam insulation behind it, whatever. It's got to be basically like rim joist sheathing wire, like paper wire stucco. In that case where there's nothing that's going to compress, whatever. But we've done it before with, using a spacer off there to allow water to clear behind and have an air gap airflow using some silicone around where the fasteners go in. Some guys put the ledger board against the stucco and just caulk the top or cut in some flashing or something, as opposed to cutting out all the stucco, removing all the wire, trying to slide the flashing up in behind and trying to re-flash and paper and tape everything.
Awful idea. It never works.
To try to do that. It's like on paper, that's the proper way to do it. We all understand that, but often it invites problems.
Yeah. Yep.
But one way or another, make sure the water's not going to damage the house structure. Number 2 is, the second on the list, the improper ledger fastening.
This is the most important one.
Correct. And this is the one I think that results in the most number of decks on the ground.
Yeah.
By far, more than anything else on this list.
Correct. The rest of the list is just filler.
Now, what we see, and I don't know, we talk about this all the time. Literally every day.
Swear. I thought you were coming at it hot.
I was ready to, but we talk about this daily with customers, often on the podcast. We've done a YouTube video about it on site saying, like, look at this. It just...
Would you look at this? Look at this. Look at that. Look at this.
It's such a common practice on newly built homes that the exterior of the house is being finished and they want to put the ledger on so that they can continue with finishing the envelope of the house, with stuccoing it, vinyl siding, whatever it's going to be. So you see it. We could take a drive right now and show you 100 houses that have been done this way.
If I could show you one, I could show you 100.
In states of construction. And what you'll see is a piece of Tyvek stapled up on the wall, ledger board put over top, ready for the rest of the house to get papered and wired or whatever they're doing. Mm-hmm. And all that they've attached that ledger to with is the same frame nails that they framed the rest of the house with.
Yep.
Which was smooth, bright framing nails.
Yep.
No galvanization.
Designed for spruce.
Right. And not meant to ever see water or copper. And so they just tap these things on quickly so that they can move on to the next thing. They're not building the deck, so they don't really care that it's attached structurally. I wish they did, because at that moment in time, that's the easiest time to make sure that it is attached properly. You know exactly. You don't have to do any guesswork as to where the structure is in the house that you can tie into. It'd be easier for everybody if they just do it then. Throw in a few leg bolts.
Even if they had like 8 ledger locks with them, right?
Yeah,
that's it. Like the 8 ledger locks on a 14-foot board would do way more than those nails, than the 75 nails they wailed into the front of that.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's no even, on most cases, there's no even attempt to hit anything behind. It's just
shit's given.
Into the OSB
pop,
or
pop.
Yeah, the strand board rim that they got on there, and it's just, yeah, exactly. Pop. They've fired a bunch of nails in there into wherever their hand happened to hit the gun and the thing and made the nail fire.
Paid by the nail. Look.
Yeah.
There it is.
So there it is. There it's attached. They finish the rest of the house. They sell the house. Homeowner moves in. Homeowner decides they're going to build their own deck or hire a contractor who also doesn't know any better than the first guy that was there. And they build the deck on, and I don't mean to say, this is the reason why you should hire decking contractors.
Yep.
As opposed to a flooring guy who can do a deck, or a guy who's built a shed before and like he's comfortable with the tools.
That's why you hire electricians to do electrical,
correct,
and plumbers to do plumbing, and a framer. Like if you're putting a roof on your house, get a framer to put the roof on your house. That's what they do.
Yeah. But like everybody knows somebody that can do this work for them. And yeah, they can probably do it.
He can do it for cheap.
80% well. They can probably do all the things. They know how to run the saw. They know how to run a drill. They can put the clips down the deck. It's all fine. But the most important part they aren't aware of. Not because they're incapable of locating and driving a structural screw, but because they just don't know that they need to do that. And so the deck gets built on this ledger board that's just been popped in with a few nails. Everybody's happy. Deck gets done. Guy gets paid. Gone. Or homeowner builds it themselves. They're proud. And a few years later, if it even makes it that far,
it usually does, right?
The bloody thing wiggles off the house. Yeah, they're usually 3-4 years old when they crack. Like that one in Regina here, I bet you that's a 3 or 4 year old home. It looked like it was pretty brand new.
Yeah, I would have thought older than that, but yeah.
Well, it could be, but it's a newish home, right?
Newish.
And yeah, eventually just with like minor vibrations, the freeze thaw cycle, the whatever, the thing just wiggles its way out because those nails, like you can pull a smooth nail out of a wall with a hammer, no problem. Like just one guy's like, out it goes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take much for that to wiggle its way out. And anybody who's ever gone back into a ledger that's been installed that way and put the proper stuff in has seen that when you drive those things in, it sucks the whole board back to the wall and the nails pop out because just the lumber drying and like curling a little bit pulls the nails out.
Yep.
And that's what's keeping the deck on your house.
Somebody was
until it doesn't anymore.
2 weeks ago, and they told me that they were redoing their whole deck. They were just like going to tear it out. But what had happened was the guy was standing beside his house, beside his deck for some reason. Maybe he was cutting his grass or he was moving some like gravel along the side of his house. And he looked over and he could see that the ledger had separated from his house. Mm-hmm. And he was like, whoa, that looks strange. So then walks over and grabbed he said he used a lag bolt, but whatever, structural screw, lag bolt, doesn't matter. And drove it in and was like, oh no, like I'm in big trouble, right? Because it moved his whole deck and now his supports moved. And so he was like, okay, I'm actually going to take everything off and kind of start this over.
So that's the most common thing when you're seeing decks laying in the ground in the news. I feel like 9 times out of 10, that's the problem.
Yeah,
they did not properly, and we knew that this was a big issue here. And then when we posted about that, and we have since taken it down because there were some legal things at play, I guess, with that stuff. Whatever, we were asked to take it down, so we took it down. But in the conversation that happened before we took it down, other people in other markets were like, "Yep, see it here all the time too." So it's not just here.
Okay, so then let's stop pointing out the obvious. How do we fix this? Do you think that the building inspector that inspected that house should lose his job and be sued for all medical damages? The inspector. Because that's his job.
So,
not the guy who builds the house.
But until last year, the city of Regina never required you to even tell them how you were fastening ledger to the house in the first place.
Right.
They never required you fastening detail of the ledger. So that guy was just doing his job. Here's the things you're checking for. The permit was approved without mentioning how you're attaching the board. So is it really his fault? Or is he just doing his job to the expectation that they gave him?
Here's what I don't like about that. They had no problem collecting the money for the permit.
Correct. Yeah.
So listen, if you're going to take the money, then take the job seriously.
Yeah.
It's like the person that ends up taking the rap on this is the guy who built it. And he is the lowest paid person in the entire equation. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, because he's in the trades, let's beat the shit out of him. It's like, that's not fair. The bureaucracy of this whole thing set it up wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The engineer has a clause in his thing that's like, no matter what I draw, no matter what I stamp, no matter what I say, it turns out it's not my fault. Like if you read the fine print on any engineer thing, it's like, no matter what happens, I'm not at trouble. I'm not at fault for this.
Yeah.
And then the city does their inspection. And it's like, no matter what happens, I'm not at fault for this because I'm the city. And it's like, that's crap. It's your job. You designed it, engineer guy, and city approved it. And the contractor who doesn't have the resources, the financial resources that the engineer and the city do, he gets built, like he gets tagged with this. It ends up on his insurance. And that's crap. I think the city should eat this one.
Maybe. It's hard to say what the scenario was here. I think the one that was in Regina looks as though the deck was probably built at the same time as the house, which leads me to think it was on the same permit as the whole build, which leads me to think that there was an engineer involved and there was plans and there probably was a detail on that ledger board.
Right.
I'm guessing.
So then here we go. So you open up the plans and the ledger detail is there by the engineer because he wrote that down.
Yeah.
Guy's off the hook. Deck fell off.
Exactly. Yeah.
You said, use these screws, check mark.
This is where it falls onto the framer.
Nope. Next person in line.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying if the drawings were there by the engineer, check. City approved it, check, because that detail is there.
No, the inspector's supposed to be on site, check that. You're supposed to walk around the house.
You're right. Yeah.
He's supposed to say, I checked that ledger. It looked good.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah.
He likely pulled up.
So there needs to be some sort of born responsibility between the installer and the inspector.
Right. And so the installer, like you said, he's a framer. He doesn't build decks. He's a framer.
Yeah.
So he frames houses. And so he used that same nails. They're super strong. They hold the whole house up.
Yeah.
They're really strong nails, right? They got great shear strength. That's what we know. Bam. In it goes. He's like pumped. So it's the inspector's job to catch that, educate that person. It's not the contractor's job. Yeah. Sure, it is his job. It's like the same as when you're speeding and you get caught speeding. It's like, it's your fault because it's like not knowing the rules isn't like, that's not an excuse. You have to know the rules.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the contractor is on the hook for some of this, but I don't think the city should be able to walk from this. I think they should pick up the tab on it. And I think if they did, it would change things. I hope a lawyer gets involved, and I hope a lawyer takes this all the way back to the city and sues the building inspector personally.
Okay.
Now I'll leave. It makes me so mad because they have no problem telling you how to do it, but they don't give two swear words about how it actually happens. They just want to charge you and tell you.
Yeah.
But then they don't follow up.
Correct. Yeah. No, there's definitely, like, we don't know all the details about that specific build, but there's definitely probably a few people that are at fault there. For sure, like whoever built the deck and whoever inspected the deck, those two are obvious. And whether it goes up from there, like, is the home builder responsible because they didn't inspect the work of their subtrade? Possibly. Or do they have a reasonable expectation that the guy followed the plans?
Right. They have a reasonable expectation.
And so
but like, again, it's like
to say.
Everybody needs to follow up on that.
Yeah. So for the love of God, for Wade's sanity in mind,
I doubt I'll get any angrier. Let's go.
Make sure that you are attaching the ledger properly. And if you're doing a deck yourself, fine. But the first step is making sure that thing's attached properly. And it's especially tricky nowadays, because of the type of floor systems that are going into house. On houses that are 30 years old, it's no big deal. You've got a solid rim joist all around, solid joist, everything.
It used to be all 2x10 everywhere, right? Or 2x12 rim. That'd be nice if they'd actually go back to that.
I think they should. Like, use your engineered stuff on the middle of the floor, fine, but like have the rim joist have some structure to it.
Yeah, it should be an LVL or it should be a 2x10, 2-ply 2x10.
Yeah.
All the way around the house. It doesn't cost that much.
What's happening now is just like you've got your engineered floor systems, typically your I joists, which are the trickiest to connect into, or your open web trusses or whatever, but it's not as easy as just driving leg bolts in anywhere anymore. You got to make sure you locate some stuff and find some blocking underneath. You might have to put some blocking on their side of the wall.
Engineers started doing some stuff like that, where they started speccing 2x10s again on the outside, if that would start to fix that. Because, so let's say it was a solid 2x10 rim around there and the framer threw 75 nails into it. It likely doesn't fall off, right?
Yeah, maybe not, yeah.
The nails, they pull out of the OSB, no problem. But it's not if it was a fir 2x10, you tried to pull a nail out of a fir 2x10? Yeah. You don't. You break your arm.
And they're already putting treated lumber on site anyway.
Yep.
As the cap at the top of the wall.
Yep.
And the next part that goes on there, like above that, is the rim. So they could just send out more of that.
Yep. Yeah.
But anyway, it's tricky. You got to know what you're doing. You got to do some investigation.
This is what I was talking about at the start of our podcast, was like the guys that are in here, they're not the ones, right? They're the ones that already know.
So Forsman's Finest says framers should know what nails to use for a deck ledger. Agreed. And TC Deck says, I'm a framer and we have about $500 in Simpson hardware connections that are required for our ledger connections.
Yep.
So
that's a small price to pay. I'll bet you the ambulance ride was way more than that. Yeah. It probably cost you $1,500 to get there.
That's the other thing. A lot of people are commenting on that post were saying, they cheaped out. It's not cheaping out. It doesn't cost anything to do it properly.
Well, it does. It costs that. So it says it costs $500 to hook a ledger onto the house. That's fine.
Who knows what? So he might be talking about like lateral load anchors and all sorts of things. I don't know. But just for a handful of the proper structural screws,
we're
talking
60 cents a piece. Yeah,
like it's $5.
Yep.
That deck that was built there was all clad out, trimmed, and everything else. It was probably a $20,000 deck.
Yep.
$5.
And then you could get a pizza too. $5. Like, Little Caesar brings it over.
Anyway,
I'm on fire today.
I have a feeling that things are about to change in Regina. With
I hope they do.
Falling off the house like that, because at some point, like even if the city doesn't get formally involved in the lawsuit that's apparently going to happen, like they're gonna have to hear about it from somewhere and be like, well, shit.
Yeah.
Like we weren't, when that was built 7 years ago, we weren't asking for ledger. And they are now. They've now asked you to specify what you're doing for a ledger connection, thankfully, but they weren't back then. So
it's okay for code to change.
It is.
It's okay for that to happen. And I think that when it changes,
as long as it's changing for safety reasons, not just bureaucratic crap, because nobody wants that either. But
yeah, but it progresses, right? That's how it goes. Wiring is different, plumbing is different. Like it's okay for all of those things to change. Just then follow up with it.
Yeah,
make the code change, and then.
New England Deck Pro says we have to do lateral tension hardware.
Yeah.
So Yeah, you've got different ones from Simpson or Fastenmaster that make those lateral load anchors or tensioners, whatever you want to call them. That like they're kind of a backup plan. That says like, yeah, you're going to put some GRK structural screws in as well. You're going to attach ledger to rim. That's all good and dandy. But what if that doesn't work? It's like now they want you putting these lateral tensioners that are going from the side of a joist into the side of a, in some cases into the side of the floor joist or
in the house.
Legs screwed into the sill plate. Because you know there's treated lumber there and it's also encased in concrete and it's not going anywhere. Yep. And so that's all bolted in there and that's not going to, so that's just like, that's extra insurance to make sure it's going to happen.
Yeah. Could you imagine if you could get tied into the sill plate all the time?
But I've not seen a deck fall off that blew out the rim of the house because there was 55 GRKs in it and it pulled the whole rim. That doesn't, if you put that stuff in there, that's should be good enough. If you're in an area that maybe is potentially earthquake areas, different rules.
Sure. Tornadoes,
whatever, right?
etc.
Joel Harper says in Georgia, I think he's LT Dex, I believe. In Georgia, where I am, we have to be licensed and to have continuing education. So that's interesting.
That is like
here you have to have a desire to do the job.
Yep.
That's what you need here to be
if you have a skill saw and a hammer and a tape measure, you're probably on your way.
Yep. Here, you just have to say, yep, I'll build it.
I don't like, now that I'm out of the building, I can talk about this because when I was in the building, I didn't like the idea. But now that I'm out and I get to look back in, I think that carpenters should have to go through the exact same process that plumbers and electricians do. Everybody complains that carpenters don't get paid enough money, but it's like, you
didn't have to invest in yourself.
You didn't take your craft as serious as those other guys are.
Some guys do. They've gone through and got the red seal and everything else, but you're not required to here. That's the thing.
Correct.
You're not allowed to go wire up a sub panel here without being an electrician.
Correct.
But you can build a house.
You can frame the whole house.
Because you built a shed one time.
The one last year that actually fell off the foundation.
I was just going to bring that up too. I was just going to talk about that too. There was a couple of them, wasn't there? 2 houses, I think. Or was it just one?
It was just one, I think.
2 houses at the same stage or something. And who was talking about this recently with me? Just the other day. They're like, the stupid thing is that they did, in the media, they never talked about the builder. They never talked about who did that and how it was done. They talked about how strong the wind was that day. And it's like, it doesn't matter how strong the wind was.
There was 80,000 houses in Regina that didn't blow over. The guy that built the house, front page.
So
like
this
pedophiles.
was, he was,
there you go.
That house was what? It was framed, sheeted, windows and doors were in,
siding was
sided
on,
onto, I think.
Done.
Just they were working on the inside, I think.
Not
like
that
it wasn't done, it wasn't moving ready.
Yeah.
Gust of wind comes. That might be underplaying it a little bit. But a massive windstorm comes and blows the thing right off the foundation. Like
it threw it onto a 40-degree angle.
And it goes, bam, throws it on the ground, the house. So
like the plates were still tied to the foundation. The house just shifted. Like the top of the house leaned over 40 degrees and the rest of it followed.
Yeah.
And the floor was nailed to the concrete, like to the sill plate. So the floor plates were still in the same spot.
Right. And so,
but the house just shifted.
Right. And so smooth nails pulled out of the end grain of the 2x4s or 2x6s, whatever it was.
Over she went.
And the silly thing is here too, I've seen in other markets, we're getting a little bit away from deck specific, but in other markets, you're required for your sheathing to lap over the different, like the floors of your house, right?
Yes.
Like, so floor 1, floor 2, a sheet has to like gap both to as a tie back. As
2 feet up.
And the rim too, right?
Yep.
Like, so from the rim and the sill plate of the foundation up into the thing, that should be one piece, but you don't have to do that here.
Nope.
And so guys start sheeting. They sheet the wall while it's sitting on the deck still. On the floor of the house.
Lay it down, sheet it.
Sheet it, stand it up, and then put another band of ply on the outside to bring everything out to the same plane.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's nothing tying the wall to the actual sill plate of the foundation other than those little nails into the ends of the 2x4s.
Yep.
And it's like you go, and then anyway, it's not completely out of possibility to think like, how did that happen? It's like, well, like all that's really holding it there
was the weight of it.
Is the weight of it sitting down to make sure those nails don't pull out.
They're heavy, man. By the time you get the drywall on there and the mud,
like you
it's
don't
pretty heavy.
It's going to move like that.
Can't pick it up.
But anyway, that's
I couldn't pick it up.
But that's where something where like, if had that been done, had the OSB been on the outside, lapping from rim up into the wall, then that couldn't have pulled out like that.
Nope.
That was I've done that a few times. My Canadian oat.
Oh,
Really came out there.
that's not what I was thinking either. I was like, really? You've pulled out a couple times? Really? I didn't think so.
I'm glad my kids, Bobby, Terry, Carter, Alice, Stanley, Rebecca, Peter, Bryce, Jacob, and the other ones I don't know about aren't listening to this podcast right now. Okay, anyways,
It could pull out. I did that.
nope. I said this wasn't a big list. That's the biggest one for me. I think probably for anybody is like the ledger connection. Make sure it's good.
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about.
So anyway,
I forgot.
now let's get on to the other things we
45 minutes
thought to
later.
throw in here.
Okay, quick fillers. Just read them off and let's get this thing
Okay,
wrapped up.
wrong hanger fasteners, wrong fasteners in the lumber, rotted railing posts, rotting of deck boards, and we'll see you next week. So the next one we did put in here is the wrong hanger fasteners or not enough fasteners in the hangers. So the first and foremost, because this is also a major common thing, is using anything but the proper fastener in the hangers.
Yeah, deck screws. That's
Most
the
common, right?
most common hanger fastener is a deck screw.
Most common is a deck screw. We've also seen flooring nails, drywall screws.
Oh yeah, drywall screws are so good. The magnetic on there,
Roofing nails.
stick on there is so good when they're
Roofing
magnetic.
nails people seem to think are okay too. It's like even people that know the other ones are wrong will still be okay with roofing nails.
Here in the States, that they're roofing nails.
The roof. So and none of those are the right application for those fasteners. And a lot of it comes down to shear strength, but regardless, you're just not supposed to be using anything that's other than what's meant for the hanger in there. So whether that's going to be your 10D nails or your Tico nails or your SD strong drive screws from Simpson, which we think are fantastic and easy to use.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to bang a hammer anymore.
Yep.
Not even as a DIY. You don't have to buy specialty tools. You don't need anything but a drill to drive those things in. So just use them. And like we have sometimes the odd time when we send out a deck package, we've done the takeoff, we've included those. Customer finishes the deck, they bring them back. They bring back the screws that we sent out for the hangers. They're like, I didn't need these. Yeah, you did.
I always just laugh. I return them. I'm like, yeah.
These are supposed to go in the hangers. What did you use? Well, I just had lots of the other screws left over.
Screws
Yeah,
left,
if those were sufficient, I wouldn't have sent these.
all good. I don't build that many decks. Never mind. I'll return these. Good work on saving the $11.
Yeah.
Let me know when your kid falls off the deck.
So that's
What? You
the
really
most
think they're
common
that
thing.
important?
So-
No, like they're not my kids. I don't care.
but I mean, you can do a test. You can
matter to
screw
me.
a deck screw into the side of the deck or anywhere really, and hit with a hammer, and it'll break off. And so in the application of a hanger, the entire point of the hanger is like it's a shear application. 90% of it there is to hold the lumber from dropping down, which would shear the fasteners. So you need a proper fastener for that. And there's also some. I'm trying to find a different word. There's also some pull-out capacity there too, like that you need to.
I've heard about mythical pullout capacity.
That the screws tend to help with as well, more so than the nails, right? Like those strong drive screws hold the board to board.
Yeah, it's
Better
the,
too.
the double
And-
shear,
yeah.
right? So it goes through the joist and into the ledger.
Yeah. So use the proper fasteners in there. I just had a guy who used to work here as a yard guy stop in the other day, Tyler Arnold, and he has.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it
He
was his parents'
texted me.
deck or whose
It was
deck
his parents' deck. The joist was coming off, and he
went
texted
in
me
there,
and was
yeah.
just like, "What am I gonna? Is there a longer hanger that I can save this with?"
How do I fix this?
Yeah.
And it was the joist had completely removed itself from the seat of the hanger. It was no
Yeah.
longer in there, but it was still like hanging on at the top by like a screw or two.
Yeah,
Like a deck screw or two.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, and then he showed the top of the deck. He's like, here's the top of the deck. And of course, like right you could see it was like it had dipped there because if the joist fell out of the hanger.
Yep.
And he's like, how do I fix it? I was like, dude, you're going to need to jack up everything. And then you have to somehow force the deck back towards the house.
Yep.
3 inches, it looks like.
Yeah.
Like your beam must be leaning out. No, not really. Not true. You're like,
Yeah.
it has to be. How did the deck shift this way 3 inches and not throw your post out of plumb?
Yeah.
And so he was going to try to tackle that, but I was like, dude, you need to be careful because that thing is about to drop on the ground.
Yeah.
Well, and the other one kind of looks like that too in the front of the house. Yep. Same thing. Nobody should be walking on that deck right now until it's addressed, but do it like you shouldn't even be crawling under that to try to fix it
Well,
at
you
this
get
point. Like you need to be safe about this.
Well, you get a beam under there and then some car jacks and jack it up. Like
Right.
you have like a beam
But if you're going to accomplish that from the outside edge of the deck, then
outside
be
edge of the
wise.
deck. Yeah. That's
Right?
right. Yeah.
So anyways, and that's a result. And not only that, they had the wrong screws and not enough in them. They hadn't filled the holes.
Yep.
It was like they had put a couple into the ledger and 2 at the top of the joist.
Good to go.
And that was it.
Yep.
It's like the other holes aren't just there for like air drying. Like they put them there because they're required.
Fill them up. Fill the holes.
Number 74, the wrong fasteners and pressure treated lumber. So now we're not talking about the hangers necessarily, but just the deck framing in itself, or even the decking to the framing connection.
Yeah.
You need to be using a galvanized
Or ledgered hose.
Or I guess all your fasteners.
Anytime
right?
you touch treated material, make sure that the copper isn't going to.
Approved for treated material.
That's it.
Yeah. So
ACQ approved.
yeah, either by a ceramic coating, a galvanization, or stainless steel.
Yeah, probably galvanization is the best. My take on that.
Well, stainless is probably the best, I guess, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard to come by though. It's hard to find stainless.
certain ones. Well, here it is, right? Again, super dry, no ocean within.
Yeah.
Whatever. I guess if
true.
if you get closer to the coast, you probably see more stainless than anything because you're
that's
required to use stainless stuff
Yep.
out there.
Yeah.
But here it's not super common, but it's also not completely uncommon to find a deck that was built with just like gold construction screws
Yep.
or something, right? And it's like you ever back one of those out and it's literally been eaten away.
You don't
There's
back
nothing
them up.
left. Yeah, they just snap.
Yep.
Because the coppers reacted with the steel and corroded it over a number of years. So it just eats it.
Mm-hmm.
Rot of railing posts. So this is becoming less and less common because wood railing is becoming less and less common.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the major rot areas in past years was where you've got your railing post dropped down into the framing, blocked in. So this thing kind of like suffocated on all sides.
Yeah, it's
Got
just
lumber pressing against it everywhere.
right at the top of the framing.
Yep. Water gets in the crevice between the blocking and the joist and the rim or whatever and around the post, and it doesn't dry out very fast, and so it just rots it.
Yeah.
Like way faster than the rest of the components.
It's the same as a fence post, right? When it goes into the ground, a fence post goes in,
Yeah.
it like rots right at the ground. It doesn't rot
Yeah.
in the ground. It doesn't rot up above. It's like right at the connection.
So that you need to take care of by flashing it. So there's good products out there now like G-tape or whatever else, or you may be able to do it with a different
Sure.
flashing details. Sometimes people are surface or fascia mounting their posts, which just allows for less.
It could be
Going
as
on
easy
there.
as just taping, like take a 4-inch or a 6-inch piece of tape and actually tape right around the post, right? Like you don't have
Sure,
to flash it up the post and all that stuff. Just make one loop around the post and then set it into the framing and frame it.
Would save the post at least, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, checking for rot areas. I guess this could also be expanded into rot areas in other parts of the deck. We talked about the ledger, but other parts such as
Beam.
the beam potentially, or
Flat blocking.
so flat blocking, those kind of areas. Anywhere where water can get into and not dry out quick enough is going to initiate some rot.
Yeah.
And so I've never seen where the beam is rotted out to the point of it's like the deck's falling down, but you've for sure seen posts on decks that have rotted out to the point that if you just give it a slight kick, it's just going to snap.
Poof. Over it goes.
So
Your live is ended.
Okay, so delete that and restart this and go live again. Next one is rotting of the deck boards themselves. And so this is a failure. It's maybe not as catastrophic as some of the other failures you talked about. The deck potentially is not going to fall on the ground, but if you fall through it,
You know what though? If there was a well
you never know where the well's
underneath
gonna
your
be.
deck,
you never know where the well is going to be.
it could be
Some people are like,
awful.
that's not that bad. My deck's only 2 feet off the ground. What you don't know is it's 32 feet off the ground.
Could be. Could have been 32 feet.
Right where your rocking chair is, 32 feet.
Yep.
Um,
And then there's the dude down there with a broken
right.
bladder.
And then they're like, my Trex makes like a singing noise. Like, no, that's Tupac. He's down there still busting out tunes.
Only when it's windy. Yeah, because that's when he knows people are around.
Yeah. So rotting deck boards, this is a common thing, especially when people paint them. Because often they don't take care of them, and then the paint develops little chips and flakes, whatever, and it gets underneath and kind of it holds water as well. And if you don't take care of the rotting deck boards when you first start to see it, which people don't, they don't take care of them until somebody falls through one. Right? Like how often do people come in and be like, "Oh, my aunt fell through the deck the other day." It's like, how did it?
Now
it wasn't good yesterday, and
now
then
my
aunt-
wife's mad at me because I tried to kill her aunt. So
and
I
how
have to
big is your
deal
aunt?
with this?
Right? Like how big? Is that a valid question?
Yeah, it's always a valid question.
But it's like the only reason this happened now is because you knew that spot was there, so you avoided it, but Aunt Peggy didn't know that she was supposed to avoid that spot. And you threw a mat over it because you didn't like how it looked. Aunt Peggy didn't know she wasn't supposed to stand on the mat. She thought it was there for other purposes. Turns out you were hiding a hole. So anyways, neglect is really what leads to rotting deck boards.
Yeah.
Lack of lateral bracing is another one we talked about.
Yeah.
And this is important here because we have
you
high
didn't
winds.
read the comment from Georgia Deck guy?
No, and
that's Gonzo now, right?
No, I can get. Oh shoot, it was gone. What did he say? Did you
So
see
he
it?
just said that like in Georgia now they're allowed to use ledgers and structural screw like ledger locks and lag bolts and structural screws for the ledger. It wasn't approved.
They had to use traditional leg bolts or carriage bolts or through bolts or something before.
Yeah, I don't know what they were using. He did specifically say lag bolts were allowed now. And so I don't know, like maybe they were using Ardox nails
I don't know
as the approved fastener.
if he jumps back in here. He did just jump back in here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joel, we missed your last comment. We didn't see all of it. Something about you now being able to use leg bolts in your market. So sorry, we didn't catch that in time. Before the live ended, and we had to restart it. So lateral bracing. So what this is this is especially applicable for high decks because the higher up it is, like the higher up that your deck is teetering on top of a post, the more it can sway. And so on low decks that are 2 feet from the ground,
I
sometimes
found this. The
bracing
higher
is
you
needed.
are, the harder it is to stay upright.
Right. Yeah.
That happens.
Okay. So you need to make sure through in some capacities the deck isn't going to sway back and forth because it'll break everything.
Yep.
If it sways too much, it's going to pull that ledger off the house because it's probably not attached properly in the first place.
Yeah, got a couple nails just in there.
Yeah. Some things are going to snap off if things are creaking and moving around too much. So you just need to make sure you have some lateral bracing, whether it's knee bracing or some flat bracing underneath, like the kind of the W bracing, that lateral bracing underneath the joist that people do. Something to stiffen the structure so it doesn't rack and shake around a bunch. So that one's important.
And it's especially important to pay attention to now because not everybody, but a large portion of decks are being done with composites.
Yeah.
And the fastener for the composites are clamps. They're not actual fasteners. They just clamp the board to the frame.
Correct. Yeah.
And so back in the good old days when people built with wood,
Yeah.
you'd screw the whole deck down. And so there's a ton of lateral support there because you got a gazillion screws and the whole thing's all fastened tight.
Yeah.
Can't
Probably
move.
almost enough. That alone, right?
Yeah. 31 boards, 2 screws every joist. It's not going anywhere.
Can't rack around.
Can't.
Rack around. Rack around. Rack up, rack up, rack down.
So now you have to address that. You have to think that the frame is now it's an independent structure of the deck boards because they're just clamped.
Yeah.
Used to be integrated.
Yeah.
You like all those big words? I felt like I really had a big streak there.
Integrated was a good
Yeah,
one.
it
Yeah.
was
Can you mark up a 1 on the board for Wade on big words?
big word board.
Yeah, that's a great point. You're not getting any more structure
And
out
put
of
a
your
point
frame
up for great points.
from
I don't get
from
many
your
of those
decking
either.
anymore, typically. So you need to pay more attention to the bracing that is going to take that wobble and racking out of the structure because the deck boards aren't doing it for you anymore.
Nope.
So, lack of maintenance is another thing that lead to deck failures.
I
So
think you did that.
Nope.
Painted board.
well, we touched on it a little bit, but we talked about that in the rotting deck boards.
Oh, you're
Lack
doubling
of
up.
maintenance. Oh, yeah, kind of. They overlap a little bit. But this is just more kind of people letting it go, right? A lot of people do pressure treated lumber and they think like, oh, it's pressure treated to last forever.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not pressure treated to last forever. It's pressure treated to last a little bit longer than had it not been.
Yep.
They just make it so that the rot can't start quite as easily.
Yeah,
and
you
the
don't have
mold
to do
doesn't
that.
like it and the bugs don't like it.
The first couple years, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
We just gave you 2 years off.
But if you don't pay attention to it and maintain it, it's going to look like crap and it's going to rot sooner and it may become a safety hazard at some point if you don't get out there and oil it or keep it clean, kick the seeds out of between the deck board. Like just general maintenance, kind of keeping things clean that are outside. It's like if you've got a fifth wheel out back that you spend 3 days every spring cleaning and picking out seeds and cleaning the air filter and your air conditioning cover and all that crap. Yeah, do that with your deck too. It's got all the same crap in it and it's not made of fiberglass, so it will rot. So anyways, it requires a little bit of maintenance every year. Clean it up.
I want a
keep it
fifth
clean.
wheel trailer.
I know you do.
JJ has no desire to camp. Would you go camping with me?
I would go camping. Yeah.
Okay. With me, though.
Well, we can talk about that.
I want to go camping.
I would go camping with you. I love camping.
Yeah.
Camping's my favorite.
Me too.
How about you, Bryce? You like camping?
No.
Big hairy no, hey?
What? Why?
My parents have always owned a cabin, so
Oh, that's
Okay.
like
So you're not
camping.
scared of the woods. You're not scared of
no.
going out and enjoying the outdoors.
no. Screw camping though. Just build a cabin.
So here's the
But have
idea.
you seen
I
this
would have a
fifth wheels
traveling
nowadays?
camper. That's what, like a traveling home. That's what it would be.
Okay.
My idea is that this thing hooks onto the truck, and it's like 32 feet long, and it's got a kitchen, a satellite, and a bunch of bump outs. It's like it's a house
not
with wheels.
camping.
It's
hardly
not camping.
camping.
It's not camping.
He's like, tents? Nope.
No.
Inconsistent piling.
Yeah.
This was your idea, so why don't you explain it?
So the idea was going to be sometimes when your house is an L shape, right? This is my idea behind this.
Yeah.
You
I knew you
fasten
had a
the
reason.
ledger-
That's why.
Yeah, you fasten the ledger to your house on say the north wall, and then again traveling out on the west wall. People will often fasten to the house on that point.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should, because I think it creates a bit of an awkward, I'm going to call it a pinch point, even though it's not really a pinch point. But if the deck is going to shift or move and needs to be adjusted, this happens because people put piles in, they think their piles are deep enough. It turns out that it's not deep enough, and the deck still moves around a little bit.
Yep.
And so if you fasten on 2 axes, is that a word? Is that a word? Does that work?
Axi.
Axes. So if you fasten on
Axums.
both of them, then you end up with this awkward little spot where you think the deck is supported, but it's not. And then it kind of twists and the pile isn't supporting it anymore. And now I have seen this where you walk out to a house and there's a 4x4 or a 6x6 and it's legit dangling off of the beam and has no support underneath of it,
Right.
because the deck is kind of hanging off of a part of the house where it's not supposed to be hanging from, really. So
Yeah.
that was it. That was my idea behind that.
And the reason I called it inconsistent piling is because sometimes because I didn't know what else to call it. I didn't know what we were trying to make that known as. But the other problem you see sometimes is extensions on decks, or something was added, or maybe the home builder poured 2 piles, but they want to go bigger with the deck. So you pour a third one. And it's like, if you don't make sure those are all the proper depth, then they move differently. And then the same kind of thing can happen. That middle one ends up jacked up or something because your piles aren't poured consistently and whatever else. So there's that can happen as well. So
Yeah.
and then that causes an issue. Like if that one of those things is floating and not attached anymore,
Yep.
that's a major tension on that deck that it's just hanging off 2 points in the house or whatever else.
Yeah.
Let's answer this question from the Instagram Marspet. I don't know if that's how I'm supposed to say that, but I wonder why so many of you guys over in America use this tape on the beams. For me, it seems like you then trap the water on top of the tape, forces the water to dry out the hardest way up.
Yeah. So I think I know what he's getting at, because it's like the idea of water
When
is
water
that
dries,
it should
doesn't
just
evaporate and go up. Isn't that the easiest way for it to go?
that's a pretty natural way, is it goes to the clouds.
Okay.
Right? It evaporates.
Yeah.
But I think
Unless you
I
have a
understand.
well.
Well, yeah, I understand what he's saying, right? It's like water wants to run down to the ground, and then
Yeah.
that's where the fastest way for water to dry off of things is to run off of it and then dry.
Or not let it get there in the first place.
Right. And so I think where the idea of the tape is that we're trying to keep it out of the sandwiched area where it takes a lot longer to get down through the lumber. So it actually kind of gets into the lumber and rots it. If you provide a hard surface for it to sit on, it dries faster on top of the tape than it does out of the lumber, because it
Right.
absorbs into the lumber as opposed to being resting on top of a hard surface that it can't absorb into.
Right.
Fastest way for it to dry out is to be on a surface that it can absorb into.
Right.
Is my thought.
Yeah, to never let it get wet in the first place. That's the
Yeah.
point of the tape.
The trick for sure would be to allow, I think some people tape the beam all the way around, and I don't know that I would agree with that. I would only ever tape the top of a beam, because if you, for some reason, did get moisture into the beam, I would want to make sure that it had a way out, which would be the bottom or side.
Right. You've seen some guys, and we did this with the Build Love project a couple of years ago, where the beams are going to be buried. They're going to be in the dirt.
It's a little bit different.
Then you've got to kind of wrap it up to make sure that it's not sitting wet all the time again. But
Yeah.
that's the point in America and Canada of the tape is not, it's to make sure the water doesn't get there in the first place. So the drying out process is irrelevant.
Yeah.
And you're putting it in areas where water can't dry out fast enough,
Correct.
so that it causes problems because it stays stagnant in there. And so it's like, well, how do we prevent that? You can't make it dry faster, but you can stop the water from getting there in the first place. That's the whole point. So that's the point of the tapes there. But you trap it between the beam and the deck. So I think he might be referring to joists, maybe. So
And so that's true.
But if between the top of the joist and the deck, yes, you trap it there. But that's why I'm not a huge fan of taping joists when you're using lumber, like wood for decking.
Yes.
But if you're using composite or PVC or plastic decking that's impervious to moisture, like it doesn't matter that it's going to stay wet, then it's not hurting that.
Yeah, if it's composite that's it. You did it already. I don't need to go on about that.
Right.
I agree with you.
But I just had a guy the other day.
If it's cedar
that came in, he's doing a cedar deck. He's like,
treated,
should I be taping all my joists? And I was like, I don't know about that, because the theory behind how the tape works would then also suggest that your cedar deck boards are going to rot out faster if you do that.
Because
you're letting it take all the moisture.
All of the moisture. It'd be okay to share some of the moisture between the joist and the cedar if you're going to.
Yeah. So I told him, I was like, tape your beams, but maybe I wouldn't in that case.
Yep.
But if you're throwing down some AZEK on it, it's like, oh yeah, no, tape that. The water's not hurting the decking.
Can't.
And in fact, now your joists are taking all of the water, like you just said, and it's just like exasperating that even more. So more comments. TimberTech Garrett Prairie says the tape keeps moisture from getting trapped between the deck board and the joist. Correct. Marspet says, okay, with wood, I would not use it. Yep, agreed. Carly Matheson says the tape actually repels water like wax on a car. You bet. And TimberTech Garrett again says, good with composite only. Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're getting at there. It's like debatable whether you should be using that when it's a wood deck, but not super debatable when it's plastic decking. Number 25, are we on?
Yeah, feels like it.
A lack of ricks. You need a rick to build your deck, says Bryce.
Yeah.
Random inspection checks, is that what you're calling it?
Fire those guys.
Independent checks.
Random independent checks. By independent, do you mean somebody independent?
Yeah.
Somebody who's not emotionally tied or financially invested in this project should look at your deck. Yeah. So I think the point there was like, this is a structure that needs an inspection from time to time. It doesn't need to be every third week. It needs to be like every season, go out and have a look at things and make sure that nothing looks like it's kind of gotten worse over the years. Because a lot of these things that we're talking about here are hidden when you're using the deck. And you can only see them from underneath or doing an inspection. So you need to make a bit of an effort to see when things are starting to go. Like we just talked about the joist falling out the hangers. You would have no idea that that's happening until it's too late if you didn't go under and look. Mm-hmm. Like in his case, the deck boards had dropped on the top of the deck. And he's like, whoa, what's causing that? Go underneath. Oh, nothing other than the whole frame of the deck is falling out from underneath it.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things, the rot, the ledger connection, all these types of things can only be seen by intentionally going and looking for them if it's not too late. And so every spring is a good time to go do it.
So that deck that fell off the house in Regina just now, that would have been impossible to see because they had soffit on there.
Right. They did.
You would never know until
Here's another
you
thing.
Hit the ground, and then you'd be like, well, shit.
And I questioned this from that picture from the second I saw it, and I didn't bring it up in the chat because I couldn't confirm nor deny that this was the case. But I don't.
Politics. Just start throwing.
I don't think there was any drainage system on that.
Nope.
And I've seen this before on these builds that the guys are putting in soffit and thinking that's the drainage system.
Yeah,
sometimes vented, sometimes not.
Not vented yet.
But the water, there has not been any consideration for where that water is supposed to go.
I have some pictures on my phone still, and I have them, and so we could look up because one of them was the pile of the lumber that was like after it was done, the pile of the material sitting off to the side, and so we might be able to zoom in and see what kind of shape those joists were in. Like they might be completely rotted.
Possibly, yeah, because they just nailed on that tin soffit.
Dude, if you were the neighbor, what would you do like the next day if you were the neighbor? What's the first thing you would do?
I don't know.
It's not a trick question.
I know, but I was trying to think of something witty, and I was like, what are you trying to say? And I'd be checking my deck first. It was logical.
Like I'd rip that soffit off mine. Like, bang. It'd be gonzo. Yeah. The soffit would be gone.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that I would even save one panel of it. Yeah. I'd be like, I'm getting under here now to see everything.
And while we're on the topic of doing this soffit in here, there was no barrier between the soffit and the treated lumber either. Nope. So a lot of that tin soffit that you put up there will react with the copper that's in there too. You're supposed to put some Tyvek or paper between it. I didn't see that either. But I didn't see a gutter. So that leads me to think they nailed up that soffit with no regard for the fact that water is going to go into the decking, fall through the decking, and then just like sit in a pool of the soffit and maybe drip out of the vent holes if it was vented and it looked like it might have been. But like, that's not how you're supposed to do that. But I've actually been to a house last year or the year before with the contractor. He's like, can you come out and have a look at this with me? Went out. It was that exact situation. There was a deck with wood deck boards. There was soffit, non-vented soffit on the bottom. And there was water staining down at the house because and this is another situation like you just talked about with, it was connected on two sides, like the L shape again. And then the concrete pile on the outside had heaved up.
Yeah.
Pushed the corner of that deck up. So now the pitch was back towards the house. Vented soffit was catching all the water, running it back to the house,
Fun.
and then running down the wall.
Fun times.
And then, as they tore the deck off, found there was pot lights in this thing.
Oh, yeah. Holding the water.
Pot lights in a bath of water from the non-vented soffit that was sitting on there. And there was a junction box in a Ziploc bag, I shit you not. I still have pictures of it. There was a junction close to the pot light that somebody had put a Ziploc bag over.
You know what? Here's what we should do.
You know what their drainage system was over the lights too? There was a piece of, what was it? Of just poly. Stapled over the joist over top of where the light was underneath.
Not a poly bag?
No, just like vapor barrier.
Like good 6 mil stuff.
Oh, it was good stuff, right?
Good
Stapled over
6 mil.
over like a little 8-inch wide one over top of the light. So that
Yeah.
the water couldn't land directly into the light, but just pool around the light.
I think
Unbelievable.
next year, I think we should just, to hell with this whole deck shop thing. Let's run around and just absolutely slay shitty contractors. Find decks that are built, post pictures of them, and just who did this? Who did this? Who did this? Find the guy, go to his house. Be like, come here.
Yeah.
Just like Holmes did, but different than Holmes. And actually put the contractor on blast. Names, pictures of his family, his kids, everybody. Whole thing. Let's go for it. Real live TV.
And get the good contractor some business.
We'll be fighting. There'll be fights.
Anyways, there's a lot of
It'll be
goofy
different
crap
than
that goes
Fight
on out
Club.
there.
We'll
It's
actually
not
be able
safe.
to talk about it.
And the last two are kind of go hand in hand. Just general bad building practices and inexperience, which probably go hand in hand. If you're not experienced in doing a lot of decks, you're going to incorporate some bad building practices.
So
all of these things are bad building practices.
In sort of in a small defense for chucking a truck, the guy probably doesn't think that he's building a bad project. He probably doesn't intentionally set out to build a bad project, right?
No, I don't think there's any. Yeah, no, not at all.
Back in the day when I was a finisher, I got into a conversation with a guy about whether we believe people were inherently good or not, right? And so I was on the wrong end of that. I was like, I don't think people are inherently good. I think that they have I think people are just mostly looking out for themselves. I think that's kind of what they're doing. Sometimes it's what they do is good for other people, but generally they just look out for their own well-being and they don't really care too much about other people. And he was arguing that people are inherently good and like to do good things for good people. And so in the idea of building a deck, if the guy doesn't know what he's doing, I don't think that he is malicious in the fact that he's like, I'm just going to use these nails and the deck will fall off.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand
Correct. Yeah.
what to use for products, right?
Yeah.
But so it's poor building practices are often out of inexperience, not out of maliciousness, right? So
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I doubt there's too many people that are like, I'm going to build this thing to fail. Because
I have heard that.
This guy ticked me off.
I've heard people say out loud,
Yeah.
I'd like this deck to rot so that in 10 years I could build it again.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
And I sold them the lumber. Yeah, I did.
well, you didn't give him bad lumber.
Nope.
So the moral of the story is here, I think all of these things right here can be addressed by just hiring a good contractor, a specialized deck contractor, and don't run away because his price is a little bit more. That's what's probably happening in a lot of these cases. They chose the lowest bid. They're trying to save money somewhere, and they use the guy who doesn't know what he's doing.
And that
The
is
reason he's cheaper is because he doesn't know what he's doing.
also on the home builder. Like the home builder does that too.
Yeah.
I remember when we were hanging doors and stuff, and I was like, well, I can get a guy that he can hang those cheaper.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I like it. It turns out I'm not racing to the bottom. I don't care.
Yeah.
We'll get somebody else to hire me. And then you have other builders in town that they just have one finisher and he works for that company and has for 40 years. He's their guy. They don't price shop. They don't do, you know what I mean? It's like, this is our guy. He's great. And we pay what he's worth.
Yeah.
And those people sell houses that are worth $1 million. And then row home builders come in and they don't have like they don't have those guys. They don't have the really expensive contractors. They just have whoever can get to it the fastest and do it the cheapest.
Yeah, exactly. And then corners get cut, and everybody thinks it's fine because it seems
good,
fine
right?
today.
Looks good.
Things happen. Comment from TC Decks. I tore off one with tongue and groove cedar soffit that was completely soaked.
Yep.
I don't understand that even. Like, geez, like, where do you think the water's going?
You didn't
Like, does
think.
nobody look at this and understand that water passes through this thing? Like, those situations blow my mind. Timbertech Garrett agrees with Wade. Like, people are just not inherently trying to mess everybody up. It's just a lack of experience.
No, I think he meant that he agreed that people would just look out for themselves.
Oh, maybe that too. Anyway, this is a frustrating episode to go with because it's just like you said, most of the people listening to this podcast know, and we're just like, we probably just made a bunch of guys mad, and you're like, yeah, I deal with this crap all the time. Everyone's fired up now, ready
Well,
to go.
whatever. They should be mad. And
But-
the same reason that the person that bought the house, like the deck fell off the house, they should be on social media. They shouldn't be telling us to take the post down.
Right,
They
that was
should be
disappointing.
blasting that they should talk. They should name the home builder and they should name the contractor. And it's like, whoa. You watch the Epstein video? This is what happens, man. The guy, like, nobody ever called him out for it.
Right.
And everybody knew. It was like, the guy's a creep. He's a pedophile. He's banging 14-year-olds. And everybody knew it. And it was like, yeah, don't talk about that. Like that, it'll make him uncomfortable. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
The house, the deck
needs
fell
to
off
be
the house.
uncomfortable.
Make that home builder uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was super disappointing when we got the message that, like, can you please take those photos down? For legal matters, sure. I'm not sure what the legal implications of the photo being up on
I don't
there
either.
were.
Hurt
I don't
feelings.
understand. Like, you know what I mean? But we were kind of like, that's really too bad because attention needs to be brought to this. They had a deck on the house. There was a second deck on their house.
Yeah, it fell
Built the
off
same-
tomorrow.
Yeah, it's built the same way. And the neighbors would have had those same decks on their house.
Exact same house right beside it.
And so now you're by muting this story, it's just going to lead to somebody else crashing off their deck.
Yep.
So hopefully if those people are requesting those images are taken down, they're doing their part to now go to their neighbors and be like, heads up, this just happened at our house because
They actually arrested her yesterday and she commits suicide tomorrow.
that was they're saying like us.
And then Bill said, take that down. And Hillary was like, sorry, how do I delete this? I only delete emails.
Right.
This is a meme that I saw. It was like, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for tuning into the IGs. Thanks for tuning into the
I'm all fired up
podcast. We're
too.
getting all sorts of stuff posted. We just hit a big milestone on YouTube. We cracked 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you're not on our
3,000.
No, we gained 30 yesterday.
We gained 30 subscribers yesterday on our YouTube.
We're at 1,032.
Holy smokes. That means people should get on there and subscribe to our YouTube channel because
you don't
this
want to
stuff
be the
gets posted.
last follower.
Right. There's lots of content on there. The podcast gets posted on there too, and snippets. If you want to hear bits and pieces of this back, Bryce has been doing a great job of posting the snippets out of it, so you don't have to listen to an hour and 18 minutes of this crap. And there's also other content on there that we're pushing out like crazy. So follow the YouTube channel. Our Instagram just hit 15,000 subscribers. We put lots of stuff out in there too, so follow that if you're not already. Do all of the
What else?
things.
Are we on TikTok yet?
We are on TikTok, but we've been neglecting that. We went pretty good for a bit, and let's get that one.
We're not supposed to be on TikTok anymore.
We got to get that one back on.
Why? Is it dead?
China. See you next week.
You've been listening to the Ultimate Deck Podcast. Ultimate Deck Podcast. Brought to you by the Ultimate Deck Shop. Shop with us at www.ultimatedeckshop.com or check us out at all the social networks we can keep up with. Hit us up for any collaboration or sponsorship opportunities. Thanks for listening.